Oracle continues to make significant progress in shifting more of its business to the cloud. The order is worth $43 billion at list prices. Moderna rallied 7.5% in the pre-market, while Merck gained 1.9%. Fortune Brands is spinning off a division and will then replace First Solar in the S&P Mid-Cap 400. Pinterest rose 2.8% in pre-market action. Company chairman Yunus Suleiman said Griffith felt responsible for the company's failure to acquire rival miner Yamana Gold. Affirm fell 1% in the pre-market.
European Parliament removes Kaili from post over Qatar graft charges. Kaili, one of 14 vice presidents in the parliament, was among 4 people arrested and charged in Belgium over the scandal that has triggered outrage in Brussels and risks damaging the European Union's image. The case, in which police discovered stacks of cash, casts a shadow over the European Parliament, which seeks to be a moral compass, criticizing global rights abuses and taking EU governments to task over any hint of impropriety. Qatar has denied any wrongdoing. The parliament acted quickly to loosen ties with Kaili, with 625 MEPs voting in favor of the move, only 1 against and 2 abstaining. The integrity of @Europarl_EN comes first and foremost, President Roberta Metsola tweeted. Michalis Dimitrakopoulos, Kaili's lawyer in Greece, said earlier on Tuesday, her position is that she is innocent, I can tell you that. She has nothing to do with financing from Qatar, nothing, explicitly and unequivocally, Dimitrakopoulos told Open TV in a first public comment. Several EU states including Germany, said the 27-nation union's credibility was at stake. Countries which have faced criticism from the Assembly, including EU member Hungary, said it had lost the moral high ground. From now on, the European Parliament will not be able to speak about corruption in a credible manner, Hungary Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó wrote on Facebook. Belgian police searched 19 homes and the offices of the parliament from Friday to Monday as part of their investigation and seized computers, mobile phones and cash, some of it found in a suitcase in a hotel room. None of the 4 people charged have been formally identified. But Kaili's name was rapidly leaked to the press. Belgian prosecutors said they had suspected for more than 4 months that a Gulf state was trying to buy influence in Brussels. Although no state was publicly named by prosecutors, a source with knowledge of the case said it was Qatar. Several European lawmakers called for Kaili to quit. Given the extent of the corruption scandal, it is the least we could expect of her, said MEP Manon Aubry, who co-chairs the Left Group. Manfred Weber, of the Conservative Europeans People Party, said, "Our colleagues at the European Parliament have been deeply shocked. These developments represent a heavy burden." The Greek authorities on Monday froze Kaili's assets in her homeland, while the Greek Socialist PASOK Party said it would expel her from its ranks. Kaili, 44, a socialist MEP, was among a stable of young aspiring Greek politicians who emerged in the debilitating debt crisis which swept Greece from 2010 to 2015, where the country required 3 international bailouts.
Consumer prices rose less than expected in November, up 7.1% from a year ago. Prices rose less than expected in November, the latest sign that the runaway inflation that has been gripping the economy is beginning to loosen up. The Consumer Price Index, which measures a wide basket of goods and services, rose just 0.1% from the previous month, and increased 7.1% from a year ago, the Labor Department reported Tuesday. Economists surveyed by Dow Jones had been expecting a 0.3% monthly increase and a 7.3% 12-month rate. Excluding volatile food and energy prices, so-called core CPI rose 0.2% on the month and 6% on an annual basis, compared with respective estimates of 0.3% and 6.1%. Stocks roared higher following the report, with futures tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average up more than 800 points initially before easing a bit. Cooling inflation will boost the markets and take pressure off the Fed for raising rates, but most importantly this spells real relief starting for Americans whose finances have been punished by higher prices, said Robert Frick, corporate economist with Navy Federal Credit Union. This is especially true for lower-income Americans who are disproportionately hurt by inflation. Falling energy prices helped keep inflation at bay. The energy index declined 1.6% for the month, due in part to a 2% decrease in gasoline. Food prices, however, rose 0.5% and were up 10.6% from a year ago. Even with its monthly decline, the energy index was higher by 13.1% from November 2021. Shelter costs, which make up about one-third of CPI weighting, continued to escalate, rising 0.6% on the month and now up 7.1% on an annual basis. The easing of inflation pressures helped give workers a lift after months of seeing wage increases fall well short of inflation. Real average hourly earnings rose 0.5% for the month, though they were still down 1.9% from a year ago. The CPI report comes the same day the rate-setting Federal Open Market Committee begins its two-day meeting. Markets widely expect the FOMC on Wednesday to announce a 0.5 percentage point rate increase, regardless of Tuesday's CPI reading. The Fed could dismiss the better-than-expected October as just 1 month's data, but the further slowdown in November makes this new disinflationary trend harder to dismiss. Paul Ashworth, chief North America economist for Capital Economics, wrote in a post-CPI note titled, "Stick a Fork in It, Inflation is Done." Inflation spiked in the spring of 2021, the result of converging factors that took price increases to their highest levels since the stagflation days of the early 1980s. Used vehicle prices, which had been a major contributor to the initial inflation burst, fell 2.9% for the month and are now down 3.3% from a year ago. As recently as February, the used cars and truck index was up more than 40% on an annual basis, the result of higher demand as a microchip shortage caused a backlog in new car production. Medical care services costs also declined 0.7% on a month basis and were up 4.4% annually. Headline CPI peaked around 9% in June 2022 and has been on a slow but steady decline since. After spending months dismissing the inflation surge as transitory, Federal Reserve officials began raising interest rates in March. The central bank has boosted its short-term borrowing rate 6 times in all, pushing the benchmark up to a targeted range of 3.75% to 4%. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said recently that an important component in determining future monetary policy moves will be looking at services inflation excluding shelter costs. That gauge was little changed in November but is up nearly 7.3% from a year ago.
Rishi Sunak promises end to asylum seeker backlog by 2023. Rishi Sunak has promised more staff to help clear the UK's backlog of asylum seekers by the end of next year. UK border officials will also be posted at Albania's main airport, under a new deal with the country. There will also be 700 staff for a new unit to monitor small boats crossing the English Channel. Mr. Sunak also announced plans to house 10,000 asylum seekers waiting on claims in disused holiday parks, former student halls, and surplus military sites. The asylum backlog has ballooned in recent years, with 143,377 awaiting an initial decision on their application and unable to work. Of these, nearly 100,000 have been waiting more than 6 months. Pressure has been building on the Home Office, as increasing numbers of claimants, housed in private and hotel accommodation, wait for a decision by officials. This has seen Mr. Sunak label the small boats crisis a priority for his premiership. There has been a rapid increase in the number of Albanians crossing the channel, and this nationality now make up 35% of arrivals. Speaking in the Commons, Mr. Sunak said it was unfair that people were claiming asylum after entering the UK illegally. He added that people were right to be angry with the current backlog, adding that global legal frameworks for asylum had become obsolete. Mr. Sunak also pledged to increase raids to enforce deportations, and tighten the UK's definition of modern slavery, which ministers have previously claimed is being abused. He promised that early next year, ministers would introduce new laws to make unambiguously clear that if you enter the UK illegally, you should not be able to remain here. He said the legislation would also make it harder to make late or spurious claims to frustrate deportation attempts. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said he welcomed the announcement of additional staff, but added there had so far been a total failure of any coordinated response to criminal trafficking gangs. It's appalling they let the backlog get this big, he told MPs. New staff we welcome, but can he guarantee that will result in prosecutions for those who put lives and national security at risk? He added. Labour MP Dame Diana Johnson, who chairs the Commons Home Affairs Committee, questioned whether there were enough staff to clear the backlog. The Prime Minister's ambition to clear the backlog within a year will be welcomed by many, as will the resources to speed up claims, with a doubling in the number of caseworkers. But we have heard such promises before without seeing the results. Faster processing risks poorer decisions and more successful appeals. It is skilled and sensitive work. Currently, a caseworker makes fewer than 2 decisions a week. But the Home Office hopes to more than double that. Recruiting and training staff will take time and resources. The Home Secretary had already announced an increase of 500 caseworkers by March next year, but accepted that a 46% attrition rate meant this would only increase the total by around 300 to 1,300. Getting through the backlog by this time next year means processing almost 3,000 extra claims a week, a mighty challenge. It is also notable that the Prime Minister did not use his statement to respond to a renewed call today from his Migration Advisory Committee that asylum seekers be allowed to work. Tim Nair-Hilton, Chief Executive of Charity Refugee Action, criticized the government for failing to commit to creating safe routes for people to come to the UK, which he said could end most small boat crossings overnight. Most of these changes are cruel, ineffective and unlawful and will do nothing to fix the real problems in the system, he said.